How do you review how good you are at openings? Kind of a hard thing to do. Well, if you play games online, like on chess.com or Elite Chess, you could look at the archive of your games and kind of see which games you're losing. I have Insight on chess.com because I have a premium membership, and Insight helps me see more detailed information. If you don't, though, you could still use the strategy that we're going to talk about, but Insight helps a lot because we're only going to focus on this part right now. You could see which openings led to wins and losses. So right now I see as white, I win a lot with the Sicilian. I don't win that much with the Scotch, even though it used to be my favorite opening, but I've changed to the Vienna, from the Scotch to the Vienna. So I'm not too worried about that opening. But if I wanted to kind of get better at the Scotch, I would review those games. The Philidor, I'm really bad at, apparently, and the Scandinavian. Everything else looks okay. This is, since I started this challenge to 2000, I'm trying every day to reach 2000 by learning more about chess, playing games, stuff like that. This is day 63, for those curious. Anyway, I opened on chess.com all the games I had the past 2 months with the Philidor, because I want to analyze the games. And in the first game, it was Vienna. I don't know why it was classified as a Philidor. Maybe it transposes or something, but I ignored it. The second game, I just had a simple blunder. If I looked at the game, for those that don't know, the Philidor happens when black comes here with the king's pawn, and then here. Kind of like a French defense weird type thing. I don't know. That's how I think of it. It like confuses me sometimes with the French defense. Anyway, I remember analyzing this a couple of months ago, maybe, and the bishop coming here is a really nice move just to, make it active, to block any taking control of the center and then stuff like that. And eventually your queen's gonna come out, your pawn's gonna come forward. And like these moves, I know these moves. I know this move. Up to here, I remember. It's only the first few moves. Now, remembering and memorizing all the opening moves doesn't necessarily mean that's it, you're done, right? Like, there's a reason why you're doing bad. And on chess.com, it does show you who gets out of the opening, out of book moves first in an opening, so that could be helpful to look at. But we're gonna assume that, people don't have that access to that information. And that you're just looking at all your games and saying, oh, I'm pretty bad with these types of openings. Anyway, the game continues. There's nothing crazy that happens right away. But a few moves later, I end up blundering. All of this stuff happens. The game is really cool. And we trade, we go into an endgame. And here already, some interesting things can happen where you have an passed pawn that you can push, forcing black's king to go deal with it, allowing you to go to the center to deal with this and get close to his pawns. So it's very tricky, but that's kind of like how it works. So that was my big mistake in this game. I didn't trade there, but that still wasn't the big mistake. If we keep watching, we'll see soon what happens. I kind of just let his pawn come into the position, and I don't find a good way of dealing with it. Is this because of the Philidor opening? I'm not sure. Maybe the opening lends itself to these types of positions. So I analyzed another game, right? And in this game, again, it was very equal game. And I came into the position. Oh, this is the game I blundered. I'm sorry. Came into the position. I came here to prevent this checkmate. And it also gives me eyes for this check. But I don't actually do that check. I come for this check. And that kind of ruins the game here. I could have came here. There's some calculation here that makes this a little difficult for my small brain. But I'm threatening some annoying stuff. And if my opponent just ignores it, trying to go for checkmate or something, I have this. I haven't looked at this game in a while. But this, and I'm basically gonna be checkmating him. So this is checkmate, which looks super cool, right? His own queen blocks off his escape square, and the pawn covers there. That's a little hard to see, right? At least for me it was. And I just completely blunder a checkmate, because I'm like, oh, I'm pinning his rook. I mean, I am pinning his rook, but that doesn't matter. It's giving support, right? So how do I classify that? That's a blunder. So I had a tricky endgame, and I guess a tricky endgame here too with the blunder. Well, I didn't want to just look at games I lost with these openings. I wanted to look at games I won as well. So I looked at this game, which I won, and I saw I was very aggressive very quickly and broke into the position. And I'm up a piece at this point, so that obviously helps. And I end up checkmating very quickly. So I was very aggressive very quickly. Maybe that's how I have to deal with the Philidor. Right? This is just me analyzing for my own game knowledge, right? And how the position is going. Like here, his bishop, he loses his bishop, and I'm up a piece. I was able to trap it very quickly. Okay. How about the next game? Well, I attacked the previous one, right? So I might as well attack again. And it's working. I'm actually winning with this attack. I have the center. I start developing pieces, and I start getting pushed backwards. And I actually remember this game. It's a very interesting game. I kind of just get into the bad position here, and I start just blundering, like getting rid of all my pieces. Because I'm like, I'm already attacking aggressively. I have to push. But it doesn't do anything. He's able to defend everything, and my queen can't get into the position, and I don't have enough resources to do anything. So I took too many risks, and I attacked badly, right? And in this last game, bad endgame skills. To be fair, I had 38 seconds here, but this is a checkmate. Here. Oh, I'm sorry. Here, I didn't even realize this was a thing. And forget about checkmate. Let's say I didn't even see a checkmate. Like, I could have came here and taken his rook. But the checkmate comes... Oops. Not after that. After this. I believe. Yes. So, that was a time issue. But again, it's like these weird endgames that end up happening with the Philidor. That's my feeling. Okay. This is the last game I kind of looked at. Very crazy game. And I blunder. I move my knight and it ends up getting trapped. It has no escape square. His bishop kind of covers everything. His king covers here. And a few moves later, I lose it and I lose the game. Again, tricky endgame. So what was my overall impression of how I lose from the Philidor? I think I need better positional play. And I need to be very cognizant of the endgame. The endgame just tends to be tricky for me, for whatever reason. I think it's more of a slow-moving game. It starts very passive. I mean, black doesn't take full control of the center in the opening. So that's how I analyzed it. Then I looked it up online, and it said the Philidor defense has a reputation of being solid, but passive for black. Now I'm like, okay. It's passive for black. Maybe that's why I was being aggressive. But I also have to be cognizant that just being aggressive all the time doesn't work. You have to play strategically, right? So not just memorizing the opening moves, maybe that will kind of spark something in my brain. Maybe not. After that, I looked at the Scandinavian. If you remember in the beginning, that's something I had trouble with too. So I looked at Scandinavian games. And in this game, I remember the queen was just, it came out early, obviously, and he wasn't developing any of his pieces. He was coming out like crazy, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? Playing super fast. So I start developing my pieces. I'm putting so much pressure on his position, and I just blunder because I can't believe that I'm not winning at this point. You know, I'm like, how do I not win? He takes my bishop. I'm down 5 points of material, and just everything falls apart. I'm somehow stuck with a bishop and queen. And there's nothing I can do, and then, you know, I'm getting mated. I resign. In this game, there's a cute little trick where I could take the queen, forcing him to take back, and then trapping this knight, actually. So this knight is trapped now. It's not something I really see that often in the Scandinavian, or looking at the rest of the games. This is more of a strategic thing, right? This game, I was too aggressive. I pushed this pawn forward. I tried it. I realize I get very frustrated when the queen is on the board, and I try to like kick it away. I think, oh, if anything I can do to keep kicking it away, that's the best thing to do. And in the beginning of the Scandinavian, that's kind of true. You develop your pieces and try to kick the opponent's queen away. But you can't be too aggressive because his queen is very active, right? In a lot of lines. Anyway, I don't play this well, and I end up losing the game. Here, I'm also too aggressive. I pushed this pawn forward when it wasn't time, and I had this knight that was just trapped. And my best plan was actually to come here. Because if he takes, I take, and I guess the idea is that I have a lot of pieces towards his king. I'm not sure. I didn't analyze these in very long, like in very big depths or whatever. But I guess I'm much better developed, and I'm already kind of eyeing his king, even though I'm down a piece. So Too aggressive, though. I didn't need to push that pawn. And in this game, I just had a very easy check. Forking the like, it's a piece, it's a free piece, it's a hanging piece. I don't know what I was thinking. I genuinely do not know what I was thinking. Like, my queen is fine here, then I could deal with this threat, and I'm just up a queen piece, right? I think, again, the queen. Because the queen comes out early, it's I become too aggressive, or I fear it. And it's like a mental thing. Scandinavian feels like that. I'm too worried about the queen. And here I'm too worried about the queen. I literally run out of time. I could have went into a draw, right? So those were the games I analyzed for white. And what I got from the Scandinavian was maybe I need to be more aggressive and take advantage of the queen's positioning, but in a more smart way, in a more strategic way. Like, play more positionally. Don't right away try to be aggressive and push your pawn forward when it's not necessary, right? Obviously, you don't know if it's necessary or not until certain moves are made or until you watch with the engine, but for me, that's kind of what I learned from it. Online, it says it's considered to be the most directly challenging move available to black after e4. And the general goal of the defense is to prevent white from controlling the center with pawns, forcing an open game, while allowing black to build a strong pawn structure. That's interesting. I never really conceptualized that. So hopefully that helps for the future, because I do like playing into the Scandinavian. I thought I was pretty good at it until I looked at my information here. Now, after that, I looked at how I play with black. This is a good example of why I don't think you need to have insights on chess.com to be able to do this type of thing. I knew I sucked with queen-pawn openings because I used to play the Caro-Kann, but get into a lot of losing positions because I would just get out of book moves early on. I didn't like playing with the Caro-Kann with black. It felt too restricting. It felt like it took long for my pieces to come out. I just personally didn't like it over time, even though I played it a lot watching, Gotham Chess, and it's considered like a very solid opening, apparently. I didn't like it. So I didn't find a replacement for the Caro-Kann, and I kept losing games since I stopped using it. Without even looking at this, I would already know that my win percentage when there's a queen pawn opening, not good. When there's king's pawn, it's okay, but even then it's not like the best. So here we see 23 games, not playing good. Not playing good. Black, again, I'm not using Caro-Kann anymore, really. But queen's pawn opening, not good. And I looked at a bunch of these games, and I just saw, like, there was different lines, different gambits my opponents would do, and I would get into better positions, but then lose, because I didn't understand the ideas behind the positions. So getting better at positional play would help, I think, but also in terms of, like, reviewing my opening skills and getting better at my openings, I just have to already replace. I have to find an opening. And I found an opening called the Nimzo Indian defense that looked really interesting. Now, how do you find an opening that suits you? Well, what do you want out of an opening, right? What are the ideas that come out of an opening that you want? You have to find openings as both black and white, because in chess you play as both black and white, obviously. So the queen's pawn, usually I would just play like this. And I would just be, I would just play moves that make sense. You're just developing, doing stuff like that. And then it would turn into crazy stuff because people have their own, opening knowledge and understanding of positional play. Anyway, I started playing this. Now, if the pawn pushes, you just take the pawn. It's a gambit. It's called Omega Gambit, apparently. I don't know much about that. But the idea here is that white looks like it's taking control of the center very quickly. And I haven't used this in a game, by the way, guys. But the idea here is that you're going to be pinning the knight to the king. If it gets attacked, you just trade. You're trying to get the knight away from the center here, from taking control of the center. That's the idea. And in a lot of these games, you fianchetto this bishop. And you can see it says Nimzo Indian defense. It looks very complicated. It looks super fun. It looks super crazy, And I'm excited to start playing it. And apparently Levy says, I watched like a 40-minute video on it, a lot of times the scenario you want is something like this, where the pawns are like this, or like this. This is the pawn structure, and you're going to be whittling away at the weak c-pawn, and he might have tripled pawns. You might push your own c-pawn, And it becomes a very interesting game. And there's different variants and different ways it could be played. But this is going to be my new counter because this looks super fun to me. And I lose a lot of queen pawn openings, right? So I feel like I need a counter. Okay, well, how about the king's... when white moves the king's pawn forward? Well, when white moves the king's pawn forward, what I found... This we went over, right? No, this is just some of the games I went through. What I found with the king's pawn opening is that if I play into Scotch, I'm pretty decent in it because I used to play the Scotch as white. So I can just kind of reverse the moves and figure out like how to play it, okay? And I typically know the book moves around the same or better than my opponent because I used to play it as white. So that's cool. And when the King's Gambit happens, I don't know how to deal with it. Now, I only played 5 games in the past 2 months with it. But I thought it was still interesting to look at because already right away I understand the theory of why I get it wrong. Boom. This is the move. This is the move. This is the move, and after this, you attack the knight, and this is how the game kind of progresses in the King's Gambit. It's seemingly a lot of the time. I'm not really sure, but that's my understanding, because I don't push that pawn forward, and the game, he has this open rook, and it looks like I'm winning, and I am, but the moves are not easy to make for me, and right away, I lose my queen because of, for those that didn't see, this attack, right? The knight covers, so the king can't take. Not good stuff. Game's still pretty even, but then I blunder a few moves later and I lose. Okay. Second game, my opponent plays with 99% accuracy, obviously understanding the ideas behind the opening. And I just very quickly fall for the simplest trick in the world. My queen is pinned to the king. Can't do anything about it. And the last game is that pawn move we were talking about. You know, typically in openings, I like to make my bishops available quickly. My knights come out. This is the stuff you learn, right? But in this opening, you counterattack on the other side. And this is actually how the game can progress. It's fascinating stuff. Look at that. This is how the game can look. So very interesting stuff. Hopefully this helped someone out there. I hope it helped. And, you know, good luck on trying to get your opening knowledge to a better level, you know, and reviewing it and understanding it. And say cube in the comments if you watch this far to let me know, because I really do appreciate you guys. I do see a lot of support for the channel recently, and I do really, really appreciate it. Have a great one, and bye-bye.